So the Cleveland Indians are confirming the reports we told you about yesterday, saying they are changing their name. They just don't know to what or when it's going to happen. Owner Paul Dolan says, though, it's time, after months of internal discussions and meetings with groups, including Native Americans, some of whom consider the name racist. We're going to try to get some perspective on this now. You know, it's easy to call it cancel culture or to say it's long overdue. We're joined now by Victoria Pelletier, a best-selling author on diversity and inclusion and a corporate executive. Victoria, thanks for stopping by First Light.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
And I'm glad that you're here. And the fact that we are speaking to you and not a sports personality, a sports reporter or anchor, and we're not talking to somebody who covers business, that tells me this is perhaps more a cultural thing and it transcends sports and or business. Is that why you are the perfect guest for this?
Yeah, I'd say yes, for sure. I've been a leader in diversity, equity, inclusion, although I will say in business as well as in community for the last 2 decades. And this to me, Michael, is not about showmanship, for in this outcry that's coming. And I must admit, I'm a hockey fan, not a baseball fan. And so, the longest drought, I think that's going in Major League Baseball right now, maybe this name change will actually move things forward for them. I think that this is about demonstrable change, right? We've talked for decades about moving the needle in all kinds, from race, gender, sexuality. And it's taken, the owners to do this here, NASDAQ just a week plus ago around a diversity proposal around diversity on boards.
So, I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and we have the former Washington Redskins, and it got to the point where, when doing newscasts or covering sports, we would not even say the name Redskins. We would just say the Washington team, which is now the name. So this is not the first time this has happened recently. It's taken a long time, as you said. But where are we going from here? There are other teams, the Atlanta Braves, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Kansas City Chiefs, who have incorporated these names and these symbols. Now, with the Redskins, I always thought Redskins is obviously a pejorative term. It is not an affectionate or term of admiration or respect. Is it disrespectful to refer to the Atlanta Braves or the Chicago Blackhawks? There's no kind of adjective there.
Yeah, if you talk to Native Americans, they will say that many of these things that in sports in particular, there's a claim that, it demonstrates, winningest and strength and all of these things. It just takes back to stereotypes that many of the Native Americans want to be breaking. In fact, they come from hundreds of different tribes and they mean different things. They dressed in different ways. So creating this singular stereotype that's used in the vernacular that's been used predominantly, now in sports is really critically important, much like, Black Lives Matter and the way in which we speak. So it's a time for us to start listening, particularly those of us who are white and recognize the privilege we have to listen to those with a lived experience and what these words mean to them.
So I know nothing about the management of the Cleveland team. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they are trying to do the right thing. But the bottom line is they are a business. So is this, as the president says, an example of cancel culture, or is this a business trying to do the best thing for its business interests? And there's nothing wrong with that.
I think it's a couple of things on that. So I think, first of all, there's intentionality that's required in creating inclusive cultures, not just diverse teams, whether that be sports teams or business teams. To create inclusion, you need to consciously be aware of whether it's language or action that gets taken. First and foremost. Second, in running a business, it's about listening to its constituents and those that they serve. And in this case, those that buy tickets and show up to the parks, to watch these games whenever we're allowed back to go, watch sports. So it's listening to the constituents. But it's also, I believe, in leaders and executives, or in this case, owners of teams that need to take a stance. Right? Who need to, again, and focus on doing the right thing, be the leader out there, be the change that we want to see.
Dan Snyder, the owner of the Washington team, said just a couple of years ago, "I will never change this name," and yet it changed. And now this team. Is this going to have a domino effect, do you think?
I think it could, quite possibly, right? I think it just takes a couple of brave souls who are prepared to do that, make this change for others to follow.
So as a person who is familiar with being in the boardroom and being a corporate executive, how do you think Major League Baseball as an industry, as a corporate entity has handled this? I understand that from the reporting that there's been some pressure from MLB on the teams, and especially on this one, to change the names. Have they been handling this correctly?
You know, it's really interesting, and I don't think that the sports and business is all that different. And the fact is, sitting in the boardrooms, we use sports analogies all the time. Reality is that inclusive teams, diverse and inclusive teams, and by inclusive, I mean people show up feeling that they can bring their whole selves into the environment they're in, right? Those teams are proven to outperform others. So I absolutely think it's right for MLB to be saying, you need to get on this, right? We're looking to, again, demonstrably come out in the community and say, you know, we're for all the people, and that means respecting those individuals, and to the earlier point, the names that in which they choose to be called or not is a big part of, you know, what makes these teams high performing. So I think they should continue to push. I think they should continue to make some demands and drive other team owners forward.
Our guest is co-author of the best-selling book, Unstoppable, Stories of Changemakers Who Dare to Make a Difference. Victoria Pelletier, diversity and inclusion expert. Well, thanks for including First Light this morning.
Thanks for having me.